my name is Hannah Richards, and this is my final milestone for my SIP level. So, the main focus of my SIP is to focus on a dialogue creation based upon uh, what real-time emotion a player is currently feeling. So, that's what I mostly worked on, and I also added in a different quest to do so that there is other stuff to search for or interact with within the level than just the dialogue. So let me go ahead and show you some of the blueprints for both the quest and the dialogue. So the first one we're going to be looking at is the weapon pickup system. So the quest that I put in was to collect 3 weapons, and it's set up to where when you pick up a weapon, it will add to a count, sort of like an inventory system. And once the player has collected all 3 weapons, they'll be notified by a user interface that will highlight green. And when they pick up the weapons, they will be destroyed as they pick them up as well. So let's go ahead and go to the next blueprint, which is the HUD. And within the HUD, this is what it looks like. This is that green highlight I was telling you about. And this collect 3 weapons and this text will only appear when the player has talked to the NPC and selected the quest, basically enabling the quest to start. And when they do that, that's when they will be able to pick up the weapons, and it will start counting in where this red text is. So let's go ahead and look at how it does that. So this is just so the UI isn't always there, and that basically when the player chooses the quest button when talking to the NPC, that's then when it will become visible to the player. And finally, we have the NPC dialogue, which is the main system that is aligned with my SIP. So what we have here is we have 2 different sliders, one for a happy emotion and one for a mad emotion. And these numbers at the top will display the percentages as the player slides the slider. And the message that is determined based on the emotion, because this is supposed to simulate like the player's real-time emotion, but mine isn't focused heavily on the tech, so we use these in place of it. So basically, when the player puts the slider to a certain amount, or puts both sliders to a certain amount, it will take that calculation and basically print out the correct type of dialogue for that, and then based on that dialogue, it will also print out the NPC's dialogue, because as of right now, the NPC is programmed to whatever the player feels, they feel the same way. But in the future, I would like to implement it to where the NPCs kind of have their own emotional states as well, so that like maybe when the player responds with something that's happy, maybe the NPC doesn't like that, so he gets mad, and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and look at the graph for this. So the first thing I'll go over is the happy and mad slider values. So basically we have it set up in floats, where basically if it's within a certain percentage or something is higher than the other, because it can only go up to a maximum of 100% added together. So the sliders are set up to where if the player tries to put, like, let's say both sliders above 50 at the same time, it'll push the other one back down, because you can't have a calculation more than 100%. So let's go ahead and look over here. So this just basically is how the conversation starts. This is the basic startup script for that. And if we go over here, then we have basically it differentiates if the player is doing the conversation or if they're starting the quest. If they start the quest, we'll move on to this down here, but I'll go over that in a minute. but if they go ahead and mess with the sliders and then click the submit button, and they will continue to go through the conversation, and it will bounce back and forth between the player and the NPC, and their messages are stored in this conversation index, which I will go over in a little bit. And this part right here is really important because this number is all depending on how long you want the conversation to go for. So the higher the number goes, the more conversation you can have. And depending on what number you end on will also depend on which person ends the conversation, whether it be the NPC or the player. As of right now, it's set to the NPC ending the conversation. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the quest now. So if the player selects the quest, like I said earlier, the NPC will give them a little dialogue that says something like, here's your quest. So like right here, if we go to the quest library, it goes ahead and pulls this text right here, and it says, here is your quest. And that UI that I showed you earlier in the HUD will then appear to the player. Alright, now let's get into a little bit more how the conversations work. So if we go over to this function, the get next player message, it basically checks to see if the what the values are based upon the sliders, the way that the player set them. So there are currently 3 different types of messages that you can get, and that's if the happy value is greater than the mad value, you get a happy message. If the mad value is greater than the happy value, you get a mad message. And if the mad value and the happy value are equal to each other, you get a neutral message. So these numbers correlate with numbers in the message library, which if we look over here, as you can see, since conversation index is set to 1, so in the message library, 1 is player happy message. So it will go ahead and play the player's happy message. And so on and so forth with the different numbers, 2 with 2, 3 with 3. Then the same kind of goes for the NPC, because as of right now, like I said earlier, the NPC is set up to just have the same result as whatever the player's emotion was. And as you can see, it's set up in a similar way. And if we go ahead and click on the message library again, we can go ahead and see how happy message for the NPC is 4, mad is 5, neutral is 6. As you can see in here, those numbers also line up. 4 is happy, 5 is mad, 6 is neutral. Just like there. So that's basically how everything works. So let me go ahead and show you what that's like in Engine. Alright, as you can see, based on the last set design, I've done a little bit more set design, especially up on the second area, but I went ahead and changed this corner area too, which we'll get to a little bit later. But I also added in some more lights and stuff and changed lighting around a little bit. So let's go ahead and go over to our NPC, right? It's a little more set design over here, a little like cafe area. Got some more buildings, got a little like a poster board, and I moved the well over to this section. And as you see, we have our NPC over here. So let's go ahead and go talk to him. And see, this works just like last time. Set up the camera angle, and now when we move the slider, the percentage is displayed up here. So let's go ahead and move this one up to like maybe like 74. And like I said earlier, when this one tries to go above that total of 100, it will start to push the other back down. And don't worry about the number, because then when you touch it again, it'll go ahead and display the correct number. And it doesn't necessarily matter if the number matches up here, because the slider has its own count itself, so even if it's the wrong number up here, it will still count whatever it is on the slider itself. So let's go ahead and say that I'm not too happy. So I'm going to go ahead and put my happiness down here, and I'm going to put my mad maybe up to like 80 something, okay? So once I do that, I'll go ahead and hit submit, and as you can see, it displays player mad message. And because I said a mad message, that means the NPC will be triggered to also say a mad message. As you can see, that's exactly what happened here. And then once I hit submit again, because I only have it set up to that maximum of 3 in the conversation index, it will go ahead and end our conversation. Alright, so I can go ahead and talk to him again, and we have it set up to where basically it will reset the dialogue. So let's say, for example, this time I am more happy, right? So I'll go up here, and then I'll move this one down. I'm a lot more happy this time. If I go ahead and hit submit, it will play the happy message. And if I play a happy message, so does the NPC. And like I said, it only goes up to 3. So once he's done with his, we are done with our conversation. Alright, now I can go ahead and show you what the quest system works like. So it's fairly simple. So instead of hitting the submit button, I'll go ahead and hit quest. And he goes and tells me, like I showed you earlier, it says here is your quest. And then now this UI pops up in the corner. And then now I can go ahead and hit submit, and it takes me back to the normal mode. So now that I have my quest, I'm going to go ahead and search for the weapons. I have added a little point light to the weapons because I couldn't find a particle that I liked that worked very well with them, because it was just the particles were too large or too extravagant for it, so I just went ahead and used a point light. So I'm going to go ahead and run into this one to pick it up and add it to my count. Right now my count is at 1. And I can see another one down here, so I'm going to go run over to this one. Now my count's at 2. And there's the final one over here. When I pick this one up, the UI will be highlighted in green, because that means I have completed the quest given to me. There we go. It's got a little bit of a collision problem in this area, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and fix that. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching.